It's that time again. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking to finally build a business that creates consistent cash flow, but you're concerned about all of the market disruptions, relax. You found your safe haven to learn the secret to success. List you last. Welcome to this week's podcast. Hey, welcome fellow listing agents. Bob Mangold, the listing coach here with episode 32 of the If You List You Last podcast. As always, thanks for listening, sharing, and downloading. Now, make sure you join our Real Estate Asset Advisor Facebook group so you can join in on the conversation, share your thoughts, give me comments, or maybe even leave questions on any of the topics I discuss right here or anything that you need help on. Now, today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Earlier this week, I hosted a panel of two of the top teams and their team leaders here in the U.S. and the number one coach in the industry on building successful agents and teams, Mike Gerc. There were so many important points that we covered that I wanted to just share the event here on the podcast with my listeners. Now, the call's an hour long, so it will definitely be longer than my normal podcast. And because of that, I'm going to skip the market update this week and get right to the panel. So here we go. Thrilled to have you here. And folks, I've got to be honest with you. I have the powerhouse panel of all panels on Top Agent Nation today. We've got three guys that are just ballers. I don't know another nice way of saying it, because each one is just an amazing resource for us that we're going to have available to you. So do me a favor real quick before we get started, because it helps if I know who the audience is. Just punch in the chat box for me. Do you have less than 1 year experience, 1 to 5, or 5+? Because I can help guide some of the questions based on what your experience level is to be able to do that. So while you guys punch it in, I'm going to just take and just introduce our three panelists real quick in no particular order other than the order that Alejandro put them in. So John Leahy is with us. And John, I forget what market you're in again now. I did look it up.
I'm in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia.
There you go. That's right. I remember that. And just a huge team leader of the Fine Living Group, just consistently selling over 250 homes a year. He's now a national speaker. He's been doing this for 20 years. Sold more than 1,800 homes, 2,000 five-star reviews between Google, Zillow, and Facebook, which, folks, if you're a real estate agent, I'm just going to tell you here, those reviews are really critical business. So as long as I've seen that on there about John, those are just ridiculously important. Mike Gerc. Mike is actually no longer in production, but he's sold over 75 homes in his career. At
7,500.
How much?
7,500.
What did I just say?
75.
Oh, 75. 7,500. Well,
A little different.
At one point, it was top 10 team in the U.S. Selling more than 1,000 homes a year in a single office. And he sold it in 2017. And Mike, you're just basically coaching and mentoring people now, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Perfect. And then we got Jim. Jim is from Southwest Virginia. So I don't know how close to John, but close.
East Tennessee, up in the north.
And I kind of love Jim's story. Okay, so Southwest Virginia, Tri-Cities, right? Northeast Tennessee or Southeast Tennessee. Basically, what I really like about Jim's story, he started in real estate in 2007, which was right before one of the crappiest markets in history, right? Yet within 4 years, he decided to go out building a team after reading the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which, again, if you haven't read that book, folks, I highly encourage that you read it. And Jim went out and started a team and going out and building this. And at the end of the day, has built something amazingly successful. Utilizing a team. So the cool part is each of these three gents have started a team and are still running it. And so one of the questions I wanted to start out with, I guess I'll just go in kind of order, John. One of the questions that I would ask is, what if you're hiring an agent to a team, what would be important to you? Like when you're interviewing an agent, what's important to you?
That's a very good question. One of the things that I look for is somebody that has character, somebody that also, in this market specifically, somebody who's willing to put the work in. When the market was easy, that's not as big of a deal. But in our market today, one of the things I always try to figure out is like, hey, I just want to make sure I'm not hiring a quitter. This market's not easy and it's not this market. is either going to make you or break you, and it's going to be really fast. So I'm not going to waste my time and energy training somebody who's a quitter.
Yeah, which is a good one. Mike, how about you? I know you're not running a team anymore, but you're coaching agents. Like, what's important to you? When you had a team, what was important to you?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, as we're screening people before we ever do interviews, there are two disqualifiers for me right off the bat. Number one, and this is assuming you're running a team, right? Not a brokerage. I don't want part-timers. So if you can't commit to this full time, and the second part, one of these goes with the first, but if you can't commit to this full time, you're never going to collapse time fast enough, gain skills fast enough, get paychecks fast enough to stay in the business. And so I'm going to be wasting our time and our money if we're going after part-time people. So a full-time commitment. I like to tell people that real estate is a very jealous mistress. It doesn't allow you to have other affections, right? That you can't have other things going on, other side hustles, work, drive an Uber. If you're doing anything else other than real estate, then you're not 1000% committed to this. So that's the first one. And the second one kind of goes with that. And that is that you have enough bankroll or familial spousal support that you can last at least 90 days. I suggest 6 months without having a sale. So what we see very often is people will nod their head and say, yeah, I'll commit to this full time. They get into your ecosystem. They don't get a paycheck in the first 45 days. They freak out and then they go get a job. And then you've just wasted all that time and energy. And so we have to, get a triple commitment that, yes, you do have the bankroll. Yes, you can actually stay with this long enough to gain a skill set. And then we'll help you get off the launch pad. So those two disqualifiers kind of eliminate most of the people before we ever get to the interview. The interview process, though, for me is really going to be all about two things. Number one is culture and values. And I think Jonathan touched on that. But if they're not a fit for your culture, if they're egocentric, if they don't have good value systems, just save yourself the headache and don't allow that bad apple to get into your basket. Number two would be hunger. And I can't teach that. If you're not hungry, then there will never be necessity. And necessity is the mother of all learning and all skill, right? So if you don't have hunger, then you're never going to do the uncomfortable. And so when you see people who have plenty of money, they don't really have to do this. This is just something they want to do for fun. They're never going to do it. And that's just been my experience. I'm sure there's exceptions to these rules, but that's my answer.
100%. Jim, how about you?
So, I mean, I agree with everything that they've said. Number one, culture, because no matter if you bring somebody in bad, it will destroy your organization from the inside out. And the two things, which Mike stole one of mine, which is somebody that's hungry and and they got to be coachable. We joked a little bit before we hopped on, and I said they gotta have some common sense too. But if they're hungry and they're coachable, they'll have that common sense factor where they're going to go out and they're going to be solutions based and not just having they're going to do a little bit extra to try to exhaust the resources to see what needs to be done instead of just being stuck and frozen. But when it comes to us and what we're looking for, if they're hungry and coachable and they fit into our culture, we can teach the skills all day long.
So that would be my next question, Jim. So you hired this person, you started. What does their first week look like? What do you start them out doing right away?
So with our onboarding, we start the first week of onboarding is pretty much about 3/4 of the day. And most people think, oh my goodness, that's so much onboarding, that's so much stuff. But instead of what a lot of people do and where we actually made an error was we would just dump all this, just word vomit, everything onto them. And instead of doing that, we said, okay, we're going to break it down. Day one, we're going to cover a couple things, but really what we're going to do is we're going to go over the basic fundamentals of LP Mama, how to have a conversation, and we're going to role play. And by the end of day two, they're on the phone calling their sphere. And they'll spend a day, we'll role play a day two, we'll role play for an hour, and then they're on the phone for 2 hours calling their sphere. Because what that does, that puts in the activity really fast. And if they're not willing to call their sphere and have conversations with their sphere during that first week, they're not going to make it anyways. So then we'll just go ahead and exit them.
which is beautiful. Can you just run through LP Mama real quick for people that don't know what it is?
Yeah, so LP Mama is just the basic framework of a dialogue: location, price, motivation, LPMA, I can't spell. Motivation, agent, mortgage, and appointment. And a lot of people get stuck with that. When I say it's framework to a dialogue, it's not that you're necessarily going to go LPMAMA, but these are the key factors of things that we need to know. We need to know why are they thinking about making a move, what area they want to be in. Have you talked to a lender? Have you figured out your financing side of things? Are you committed to another agent, or are you just kind of shopping freely right now? And as we have that, we have a conversation to build rapport and relationship during that conversation. It allows us to pick up some of those key things so we can actually better help them with their home search and or with the sale of their home.
Perfect. So, folks, one of the things that I talk about all the time, if you want to be successful in real estate, you better talk to at least 10 people a day that are looking to take and sell their home. I'd focus on listings. Talk to 10 people a day. There's no magic to this. That's just what you have to do. Mike, how about you? I know you're not running a team, but if we were going to start somebody out from square today on your old team, what would you have them doing?
Well, part of any onboarding process, I think, is the team has to have about a 90-day onboarding process. So obviously you're going to front load certain things that they can get into activity quickly, like Jim said. And part of this, all honestly, is narrowing their focus. I think too many teams make the mistake of trying to teach everybody everything instead of narrowing their focus to one thing that they can just really hone in on and develop a skill set around that. So one example would be if I'm recruiting agents, I'm not recruiting them to be listing agents. I'm recruiting them to be buyer's agents. Okay, great. Then I'm going to train that buyer's agent how to take a phone call. I'm going to train that buyer's agent how to make a phone call. I'm going to teach that buyer's agent how to convert that into an appointment. We're going to teach them how to do a proper buyer consultation, how to get an agency agreement. And especially in today's market, how important is that, guys?
Big one.
Yeah. Now you have to do it. Sorry. Right. So
Yeah.
we're teaching people by narrowing their focus and really just teaching the conversion. We're able to execute on all of those conversion points. And then even then, how do I work with someone to help them make a decision regarding purchasing a home? And we can set the stage for that very, very well in a buyer consultation. So if you properly lay out a buyer consultation, it's training them to be a good buyer for you and in today's market. So I'm setting expectations of how many homes we're going to go look at, what things we need to pay attention to, what things you can deal with during an inspection. We're going to train them on that all up front. And so the training process has got to be narrow in its focus, in my opinion. We're going to teach them some of the real estate because I know that the real estate school themselves are not teaching them properly how to explain a contract, answer questions regarding the contract. So there's going to be some real estate nuts and bolts in there. But I would say the lion's share is going to be centered around conversion training. Conversion training really is going to be the income. There are plenty of super smart, book smart real estate agents who are broke, who don't make any money because they can't convert. This is a conversion game, and I've got to train them to convert this type of lead I'm going to give them. So that's my answer.
So here's what's important to me, folks. So you may be sitting there going, hey, I don't have a team. I'm not thinking about making a team. Why is that important to me? Mike just gave you the breakdown, and so did Jim, about exactly what you need to start doing in your real estate business. Doesn't matter if you're on a team or not. Those are the things that you should be doing, right? Doing your LP Mama, having your conversations, role playing. I know Jim mentioned that in terms of role playing. Like, those are the things you all need to do, whether you're on a team or not. I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but it is relevant. Those are the things you need to do. So, Jonathan, how about you? What do you have people start doing right away?
So one of the things that we added, so I love what Jim and Mike just covered. It's very similar to what we do. The other thing that we just added to our onboarding process recently is we assigned them to a mentor. And the mentor is there because the best way to learn is to see them in action. So we actually assigned the agents to a mentor. And now we actually created a chat group for all the shadowing opportunities because it's one thing to learn it, it's one thing to watch it on Trainual, it's one thing to like watch videos of me giving the presentation. But I'm like, hey, why don't you just go out there and meet people alongside with one of my mentors and shadow them? Just be like a fly on the wall and watch people get rejected. Watch the top agents on the team get rejected and listen how they overcome that stuff. So that's one of the biggest things that we added to our process in the last like 6 to 8 months that really help us grow our business in the last year. Like we're up 40% this year. And one of the biggest things that we changed was we have that shadowing opportunity with mentors. And then the other thing that we added recently is because we work in the cloud. Our team, we have 30 plus agents. We don't have an office. But what we started doing is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm on call with the agents, 9:30 to 10 in the morning. We're doing Q&As. We're doing role play objection handling scripts. And then what I recently started adding that's making a huge difference as well is now I'm making the phone calls in front of these agents on Google Meet or on Zoom, unmuted. I'm on speakerphone, so they can hear the whole conversation. They're hearing me get they're hearing me getting rejected. They're hearing me like having to overcome objections live on call with people. So it's not like me teaching theories. It's not the agents. It's not my mentors or training while teaching theories. They get to hear us actually practice what we preach, and they get to hear me fail. They get to hear. There was one Friday. Dude, you're gonna love this. I made 40 dials. I only had one conversation. And I was like, if you look at my face, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the worst like shadowing time for people because I'm like, oh, nobody's picking up their call today. But I just didn't give up. I just kept on making dials one after another, after another, after another. And they see me do what I want them to do. It's like show and tell, right? Like show and tell.
Right.
Instead of just like, hey, I'm telling you what to do. Now they get to be shown what to do. Like they get to watch us do it, including fail in front of them, which I think is like the best thing of like our onboarding process now. Is like, hey, we're not just gonna make you watch the videos. You get to actually watch us fail and succeed and overcome objections and not quit in front of you.
Because I do think that's one of the biggest things, folks. Everybody thinks that if you're an amazing agent, you're doing all this volume, that you never fail, or that everybody just doesn't say, oh, Jonathan, yeah, let's just do this and it's all easy. It's not reality, man. It's just not. So we're all going to have that.
Yep. 40 dials, one conversation.
Exactly. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to chime in because what you said is spot on, Jonathan, because the more we can give them an experience of what to mimic, like the behaviors to model, I think the better. So to kind of add to that, we had our people be able to listen to call recordings. Like we had a library of hundreds of call recordings that they had to go through and just listen to them. Here's an example of objection handling this script, or dealing with this objection, or dealing with this, but they got to hear it over and over and over and over again. Then they got to go and listen to people making live calls in the call center because we had ISAs. And so our ISAs basically served as a training ground for all of our real estate agents, making the exact same calls I expect the buyer's agents to make. And it allows them to desensitize themselves to the rejection. And that's what you were doing for them, is just modeling that behavior, and desensitizing them to the, oh no, what are they going to say?
Right.
So, it's good stuff.
Folks, the number one thing I think you can do, in my opinion, is to role play. It's even better if you do what Jonathan just said, where, hey, you're watching somebody else do that. But the very worst case scenario, you're not on a team or any of those things. The number one thing you can do is role play. And I've had people say, well, I don't have anybody who wants to role play with me. Then my answer is go stand in front of a mirror and you do it. You role play with yourself. If you really couldn't find anybody, then do it yourself. Because again, anybody's seen me on stage, it's like, oh, you just think this stuff rolls off my tongue. It's been practiced 1,000 or 10,000 times. It doesn't work that way, right? And so at the end of the day, guys, the best way to increase your skills is to role play. And that's one of the reasons why people on teams tend to be more successful, because the team leaders make them do that. So if you're not on a team, you can control it on your own.
One of the things, just being completely transparent, one of the things that I think that I messed up in with building a team and, with onboarding, with training, with whatever, was, we make things too way freaking complicated. Really what we do is simple. It really is. And even as a new agent or as an individual agent or as a team leader or whatever, we chase all these different shiny objects instead of just thinking, okay, what's the one thing that I can do today by doing that one thing will move the needle forward. And role play, having conversations. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know all the objection handlers. Because I went through the season where I went out and I got all the script manuals and all the objection manuals, and I had stacks and stacks of binders, literally like probably 2 feet tall. And I never used them because it was overwhelming versus say, okay, I'm going to master one thing and I'm just going to focus on this one thing and we're just going to go. And I'm going to pick up little bits and pieces as we go instead of just allowing ourselves to get that, analysis paralysis and stopping. Just get into activity, get into, the training, whatever it is, but focus on that one thing and just doing that one thing well over and over and over and over.
And I think that one of the things that Jim just said, folks, is that agents make things, just people, human nature, I think, is to make things more difficult. Like you overthink things, right? Like, well, how do I do an open house? It's like, go open the door, have a couple flyers, think about what you're like. There's no magic to these things, but we complicate things when we don't have to. And it's a pretty simple thing. Talk to 10 people a day, physically talk. So if you got to do like Jonathan, you had to make 400 dials that day, because that's the reality of it, folks. But at the end of the day, don't make things hard. Just get out and have conversations with people. And the more conversations you have, the more skill you'll get and the more comfort you'll get with it. So, all right. So here's another question for is I guess I'll start with Jonathan. If I were to drop you out of a plane, brand new market, nobody, because I hear this all the time, like, nobody, what would you do?
I would find the top team leader in that market. Start there. Honestly,
Okay.
that's my belief. It's like just find somebody who's already doing what you want to do somewhere and pick their brain. Either you shadow them or work with them or be part of their team, but start there.
It's okay. How about you, Jim? I don't know if Mike Krubek dropped off. Mike, you still there? Right. Jim, how about you? What would you do?
So, 100% echo what Jonathan said. I'd go find somebody that is excelling with what I want to excel with. And, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily join their team, but I'm going to go be a fly on the wall. I'm going to see if I can take them at the lunch, at the dinner, out to grab a drink, to buy them coffee, whatever, just to get some time just to watch, to see what is it that they're doing that's separating them from everybody else. And, as far as, activities based, I would go and I'd hold as many open houses as I could. I would door knock those neighborhoods. Like going back to the open house thing, people think open houses don't work. Well, they don't work because people don't actually work the open house. They just show up like, I'll put the sign in the yard 15 minutes before, nobody came. Well, yeah, good job, genius. Go out, door knock the neighborhood like 4 days before, because there's two types of people that come to open houses: people that are looking to buy and people that are looking to sell. Which one are you? But go out and invite the neighborhood and everybody that you can to it. Go out and just do those activities to where you get face to face with everybody. Because if you speak to enough people, the business will come. Like I said, it's simple.
Well, it's kind of my pet peeve there is when I see open houses, they're like 12 to 2 on Saturday or 1 to 3 on Sunday, and you put 2 signs out.
Yeah.
That's just newsflash. That's not going to work, right? So one of my guys in Phoenix, 196 people in this weekend into an open house. They work when you work them, right? Mm-hmm. But he also didn't do that from 1 to 3 or whatever, 1 to 2. I've seen 1 hour open houses. Like, you got to be kidding me. And then if you're an agent, well, have you thought through the process about what am I going to say when people come in, right? What's my goal in that? So we call it a 5 to 1. How do we get 5 deals from 1 listing? Well, you can't do that if you're not prepared with, like, what are you going to talk about with people that may not have an interest in that house? So all those things have to be thought through when you do these. But doing an open house for an hour or 2 and putting 2 signs out, guys, not going to cut it. So Mike, it looked like you dropped off. So if I was to drop you, right, made you start all over again, new market, new everything, no sphere of influence, what would you do?
Well, I think first the mindset has to be right. I have to have the mindset that I'm going to outwork every single agent in that town. Like no TV, no Netflix, no vacations, no days off, nothing. If you look back at my career, which really technically started full time in 2002, I sold 26 homes in my first 6 months. In my first year, I sold like 92 homes, and I didn't have a day off. It was morning to night, 7 days a week. And I don't necessarily recommend that, but but again, necessity makes you do things. So if you have that mindset, then I think you can be successful no matter what you do. For me, I think it depends on whether or not you have the bankroll to be able to survive and you have money to invest. If you don't, and if it's all just belly to belly, elbow grease type stuff, then you're going to have to find bottom of funnel leads. But in order to find bottom of funnel leads, typically you're just going to have to get in front of enough people. You said open houses, totally agree. I think that's like old school traditional real estate. It still works like a champ, right? You put out enough signs, you do the proper prep, you're going to get a lot of people. And if you're holding the right open house, don't hold an open house just because it's an oldie moldy listing that isn't selling. Like, go pick a house that everyone wants to be in, that just listed, yesterday, that no one's seen before. It's in a good price bracket, meaning like median or close to the median, where all the buyers are, hovering. If you're picking these really obscure ones or something out in the country or something, way above the median, you're not going to get the masses. For me, it's like, I always want to shoot right for the middle of the bell curve. Where's all the activity happening? I want to shoot right there. That's where all the deal flow is. So if that's the case, then I want to hold open houses right in the middle of the median price. That's also where I'm going to be making a lot of phone calls to expireds, for sale by owners. Why? Because they're bottom of funnel, high intent. They've already raised their hand. They said, I want to buy or sell. And so there's some intent there. And I may not have the skills yet, but if you put me in a new market, absolutely. I'm calling FSBOs. I'm calling expireds. I'm holding open houses 2 times a week, every single weekend. And I'm going to know all the inventory in the area, so that when I hold an open house, if you don't like this one, I know the one that you're going to buy based on your feedback. Oh, you want an island kitchen? Well, there's one over there and it's got this and it's got that. When would you like to see it? Right. I can take the storefront of this open house and sell anything.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of this is just to get the foot traffic. That's it. Once I've done that, then I can take what they've told me and turn that into something else.
Your key word there was storefront. Your open house or your listing.
Retail real estate.
Storefront, right? Think of it as retail. I have a retail store that I'm selling. First of all, I employed all the other agents to do it, but it's also going to attract people to me.
Yep.
And if you get good at that, that's a critical thought process. So one of the things that I do is I have agents actually do a zip code analysis and break down where they want to focus, right? Because they'll say, oh, I want to target my neighborhood for listings. And I go, great. How many homes have sold there in the last 6 months? Right? And I'll never forget, we did one in Southern California one time, and 3 homes had sold in that subdivision in a year. Do you really want to target a subdivision with 3 transactions? So you got to do a little bit of legwork and think through these things and say, hey, I want to target, like Mike said, I want to target where the activity's at. Yeah, do I want to sell multi-million-dollar properties? Yes. 20 homes sell in 6 months at this subdivision or this area, and 600 sell in that one. I want to be where the 600's at least for me, I do. And at the end of the day, these are things that you can think through, folks, to be able to take and do that stuff. But for me, if you were to say, hey, drop me out of, listen, I'd be sitting there at a FSBO's door in 20 minutes, right? The other little tip I'll also give you, if you want to find listings that you could sit for an open house, go to Zillow, look for them that have been on like 3-4 days, and look for the number of views and saves. Like, we know within about 3 days from the number of Zillow views and saves that we get, what kind of activity we'll get.
Yep.
So obviously the more the merrier, right?
One thing that when Mike was talking about, FSBOs and expireds, when I first started, going out and having to prospect all stuff, I was intimidated by calling them FSBOs and expireds. And there's one huge piece of business that a lot of people forget about. Well, if somebody's selling their house, let's say, all right, we're in a new market, we don't have any money, I've got to do something now. We've got to find this bottom of funnel lead. So open houses, door knocking, blah, 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 so on and so forth. If somebody's selling their house for sale by owner and they live in it, guess what they have to do? They got to buy another freaking house. So you don't have to call and be like everybody else saying, "Hey, look, I want to take a look at your house." Be like, "No, hey, hey Bob, it's Jim over at Griffin Home Group. I just wanted to reach out to you and see, I know that you're selling your home, but I had a question for you. Are you staying local, or are you moving outside the market? What's got you thinking about making a move? What kind of prompted this?" And then you can pick them up on the buy side. And if you build enough rapport with them on the buy side, you may end up landing the listing as well.
That's
And
great.
worst case scenario, they move outside of your market, and God forbid, you get paid a referral for sending somebody a name, a phone number, and email address. So it goes back to it's that simple little piece of something extra that a lot of people just overlook, and it doesn't cost anything but time to pick up the phone and hit 10 little numbers on your phone and the little green button, and it does magic. It's amazing.
In the comment that you just made, the reason I was laughing at that, Jim, because I've had agents, when I tell them that, they go, "Oh, well, they're moving out of the neighborhood or the area, so I can't really do that." It's like, well, where were they going? And why not call an agent and get a 25% referral fee? You go, "Oh, that's a great idea." It's like, well, it's kind of not an idea. It's kind of common sense, right? Free work, free money, or no work, free money. Come on. At least that's what I think about it. So,
That is very true. I actually want to give a shout out to Amanda Hurt. Amanda is here. I see her, and I just closed a referral from Amanda. It's somebody that her and her husband was working with building a house in Florida. And she just called me out of the blue. She's like, "Hey, Jonathan, I got somebody who needs to sell their house in Annapolis in Maryland. Can you help them out?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." We just closed the deal yesterday. So exactly what you guys were talking about, like, yeah, you're working with people and they're moving out of the area or they're moving into your area, and which is great because like the most active buyers are usually at open houses. And yeah, people who are expireds and for sale by owners, they already they identified themselves as people who needs to move. They want to sell. And I just asked, like, "Oh, by the way, if you do sell, if you were to sell, I'm just curious, where will you move to?" Just a simple question. It's the conversation. It's the LP Mama conversation.
right. The cool part in all this stuff, folks, if hopefully you get it, even if you listen like last week when Amanda was on, there's really not anything dramatically new in real estate. It's executing the basics like that, right? And I have an agent in our market. She actually started out at my exit franchises. I taught her how to be a transaction coordinator. Now she's an agent doing about $10 million a year. Her only source of business is referral from agents around the country that she went out and facilitated these relationships with. And like Jeff just said, that's the power of our network here at Top Agent Nation, right? Go out and facilitate these referrals from agents around the country where people are moving in from other markets. Like basic stuff. It doesn't have to be fancy, but you do have to execute it. That's where that hard work thing came in. That's where that question came in. Hey, why is that hard work? Right? Not that I think that that's necessarily hard work, but you got to do those things. So, John, if you were going to start all over again as an agent, right? Things have changed. So I've been doing this for 33 years. There was no such thing as YouTube then. There was no such thing as Instagram then. There's none of those things. Like, what would you do differently today? Because I have a different answer than what I would do than I would have answered this 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Because technology is changing things. So what would you do differently now in today's world?
Well, one of the things that I didn't want to do back in the day was spend money on hire a coach. That was the one thing that I'm like, that's a lot of money. And I kind of held back for like the first 5 years of my career being a part-time agent. Like Mike would have never hired me. I was a part-time agent who didn't want to spend money on me. So it was like the fifth year I finally decided, you know what, I'm gonna hire a coach, somebody actually who knows what the hell they're doing. Let me just learn from somebody who already figured that out and just copy them. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing that I would do is actually just do videos. And I know it was maybe 4 to 6 years ago. I was with my mentor and he said, "Jonathan, this is early when YouTube wasn't, maybe not YouTube, maybe it was like Reels, and YouTube wasn't like that big yet for real estate." He's like, "You should just do videos." And I said, "Yeah, I should." He's like, "Yeah, go do videos. Like, I'll give you all the content. All you have to do is just do videos." I remember my first video, I used BombBomb and I put my phone or my laptop at my dining table. And like 3, 4 hours later, I was still shooting the first 30 seconds of the video. And I was like, forget this. Like, this is too hard. And I closed my laptop. And for like the next 2, 3 years, I didn't do a single video. It wasn't until maybe like a year and a half ago when I was like, you know what? I did commit to doing videos and my business. And it's like, you can't turn back the clock and be like, I wish I did this. But I wish I did that. I wish I actually did what I committed myself to be doing, which is I was supposed to do videos 4 or 5 years ago when I committed to doing it. And I was too chicken and I was too embarrassed. And it was just too hard and it was hard work. And I was like, you know what? Let me just spend money on and I ended up spending so much money on marketing where I could have done it for free and just done videos. So if there's one thing that I would do now, if I can just turn back the clock, I'd just be like, just do videos and hire somebody who already has done what you want to do and just copy. And if you can copy I think Mike told me this, don't innovate. Stop innovating. Just I forgot how Mike says it. Mike,
Yeah.
what's the term?
Imitate.
Imitate before innovate. Once you imitate and you figure out what your baseline is, and you figure this out and you know how to do it, and it's scalable, then you can innovate. Then you can scale up. There you go. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, one of my agents in Tucson, Arizona, so not a huge market, right? Jeff's backyard, 41 transactions last year, 100% from YouTube. They spent $0 in marketing to do 41 transactions, average purchase price about 600 roughly, all free.
That's awesome.
So Mike, how about you if we made you start all over again?
Well, I'll tell you what I did when I went full-time in real estate. Because I'm all about leverage. I didn't make the phone calls for sell by owners and expireds. I hired my neighbor to do it. And then I had made my neighbor send out postcards to FSBOs and expireds. And what we did was direct mail to FSBOs and expireds every single week for 90 days. So every time I showed up at a listing appointment, what would happen is they would have a stack of mail and it was one thing from everybody. But I was in their mailbox every single week for 90 days. And I had people who said, I hired you because I knew that you would be consistent and you've done more to earn my business than my previous agent did, And so I think that for me was the key is bottom of funnel. I knew they were a good source of business. I just had to be different and stand out and be in front of them more often than everybody else. So that was what I did. In addition to open houses. So I did open houses every single weekend, put out a boatload of signs. This is before, the internet was around, but it wasn't really, like what it is today. And so my prep was nil, but we put out a ton of signs. I think it's like 20 or 30 signs everywhere.
Right.
And what we would do is I had the listings because we were doing FSBOs and expireds. I had the listings in the inventory to hold open. If I didn't, like you said, parachute into a new market. If I didn't have the inventory, I'd be calling every FSBO and saying, can I hold your house open? If I sell it, I'll give you the client. Oh, by the way, if you want me to do the paperwork on that client, I'll do it for 1%. And every single FSBO will say yes. And they'll say, why in the hell will you do that? And I said, well, because I have 4,000 homes to sell. You have one. That's why. And they're going to get excited. And I've just earned an opportunity to get that listing later because I've demonstrated value and built rapport up front. So that's key. Number 2 would be every single brand new listing in my market that's in the median. I would be reaching out to that agent and saying, can I hold your house open? When you do an open house, be different than every other house they walk into, which means the literature I have, the flyer I have is going to have all kinds of differentiation points about my team, what I do differently, why I'm better, blah, blah, blah. That's going to be on the backside of the flyer. So every piece of literature or opportunity I have, even a business card, the back is going to have my value propositions on it to where it's going to help differentiate me from every other business card they've got in their hand. Right. So between the flyers, the way that they're greeted when they come in the open house, the beverages or snacks or whatever or coffee I give them to come in.
You're serving margaritas?
Because I want them to hang around, right? And I want to have a conversation. And if I give them a hot coffee, I'm gonna have a better chance to ask them what they liked about the kitchen or the bathroom or the backyard or whatever, and then we can parlay that into conversation about some other piece of inventory I know about.
Right.
So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
One thing that segue off of that too is that you can, if you're doing an open house and you've got that, go ahead and pull a couple other listings that are in that same price bracket.
Mm-hmm.
That when somebody comes in, go ahead and set up a showing for right after your open house, just for a virtual showing. And then when somebody comes and says, this isn't really, this doesn't really match what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. You know what? I actually have to do a virtual showing for somebody else over here at this house over at 123 Main Street right after this. Why don't you just come over and meet me there at 4:15? I'll be there anyways. I'll be glad to be able to set the, oh, really? But it's taking that one opportunity, like you said, that one opportunity to think of how many opportunities could I make from this one instance of meeting with this person.
Yeah, back in the REO day when the houses were vacant, we would literally take one bedroom, print 5 sheets of other homes available within, call it a 2-mile radius, same basic price range, tape them on the wall, and we would just go when people walked in, hey, in the 3rd bedroom, there's a list. If you don't like this house, there's flyers, there's sheets for every one of the other listings in the area. If you want to go see any of those, just pull them off and bring them back, and I'll have one of my agents go and bring you over and check it out. And so we literally had agents that would be sitting there working. I could go, hey, Jim, here you go. Bob and Susie here want to go over to 123 Main Street. Now, that's when the houses were vacant. You could put tape on the wall and all that other stuff. So it wasn't fancy, wasn't sexy, but my goodness, did that work really, really well.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Right? You'd kind of piss people off now if you did that in their dining room too, something left tape marks, but hey, whatever. All I can tell you is it worked because being different matters. Right. So the name of my company is Red Zebra. The way that I came up with that, if you were driving along a road and here's a herd of zebras and all of a sudden they kind of parted and in the middle you've seen a zebra with red and white stripes, what would you do? Your marketing has to do that. It has to stop them and say, wow, I'm different. And if you don't do that, then you're going to be a commodity like every other real estate agent on the planet, which is what Mike was saying. And Mike, would you still do direct mail today?
1,000%. 1,000%. And to the point about being different, very few other people are, right? So I want to go where no one else has already like earned the eyeballs or the mind share with those people, because other people aren't in the mailbox. I'm going to be. And if they are in the mailbox, they're not going to be in the mailbox with the consistency that I'm going to be.
And
right.
here's
So I think to build mind share, we have to have a repetition and a frequency of impressions with my brand and my offering enough to where there's some equity I have in their mind to where they feel like, oh, well, I see his name everywhere. He must be a good agent. He must be a top producing agent. Right. And so the fear barrier can be lowered just simply by having enough frequency with that person. You could be brand new, but if you're mailing to that neighborhood every single week or every single month, or that list every single week, you're going to have such mind share with that small group of people that you're the number one agent, right? Because that's how their brain, subconsciously will process that.
And the good news is, folks, the technology has changed since when Mike first started doing that, right? You'd have to take and upload a list to him all the time and whatever. Now you just upload a list and say, hey, I want this to go out for the next 90 days, 120 days, and it's done. Poof, done. You don't have to think about it. So I will just tell you, we do direct mail also, and it does work. And I don't want to say it doesn't matter what your message is, because that would be somewhat false. It's the consistency that matters more than the message even. And it does work. And yes, postage went up. Don't care. The amount we get paid in a commission on a piece of real estate offsets any cost that you have, right? So let me come back this way, because some of you guys are on here and said, hey, I've never considered a team, and I actually got a couple of people making comments. Well, what about a team? So Jonathan, same idea. If I said, hey, you have to start a new team from scratch, what would you do?
Can we go to Jim first? Jim's like, he gets all the freebies at the end. Jim, let's go to Jim. Jim, what would you do, Jim? I wanna piggyback whatever you say.
Funny that you say that, because I actually went through just recently. We went through a bit of growth over the last couple of years, and just recently, about 10 days ago, I sat down with my sales team and was like, okay, so you guys over here aren't showing up, aren't doing anything. we're transferring back to the state. Have a wonderful day. And we went from 23 agents down to, I think we're at 11 now on our team roster. But if I was starting over with a team, golly, man, there's so many things that I've done and done well with screwing it all up. Not hiring a coach fast enough, hiring an agent instead of a staff member or an assistant. Hiring an agent first rather than hiring staff and assistant. Not documenting stuff, or at least recording stuff along the way. But if I was to start all over with it, and there's been days, just being completely honest and transparent, and Mike knows this, and Jonathan does too, because I've bitched and whined with them a couple times. There's been days that I'm like, we're going to burn this puppy down to the ground, and I'm over it, and we're just going to start all over, to hell with everybody and everything. And we're just going to start all over, fresh, and build back faster and better. But, what does that look like? And, the first thing I would do is the people that we bring in, we're going to bring in the right people. When we go to hire that first staff member, I'm not going to be coming and hiring from a place of necessity and a place of a lack and poverty mindset, saying, what's the minimum amount that I can pay somebody to help me with this? Because then you also get the minimum amount of talent, and sometimes the minimum amount of brain cells. I've been through that one too. But I'm going to find the right people to come into alignment with me. I'm not going to chase all the shiny objects. I mean, I've spent, I don't know about how Jonathan and Mike did at times with making things. There's one company that was out there, and it was a $15,000 for a website up front and all this custom work and everything. I'm like, okay, everybody else just use it. I'm gonna use it. Let's go. And we never did anything with it, except for taking our 15 grand and setting it on fire in the parking lot. But I would keep it simple, and and go back and say, okay, so we're going to grow, and as we grow, we're going to go ahead and put the things in place. I'm not going to chase all these shiny objects. I'm going to be prospecting based and marketing enhanced, versus what I did before is I was start off with REO and BPOs, those relationships, and in a very rural area of East Tennessee that I'm in, there wasn't a whole lot. But then in order to get that market share, I jumped on radio and TV. Well, that's very expensive. And if I was to go back and do it all over again, like right now, I wouldn't jump on that necessarily up front. It would still be a major component of the business when I got to that point. But I'm gonna get a solid CRM that's gonna let me be able to make the call, so I can track my numbers and track anybody else's numbers. And I'm gonna focus on my database, because that was the one thing. I was so bad with my database. They literally taught at the market center I was at. They'd say, if you want to make $1 million a year, if you want to do this, Jim's got the top team in the marketplace. Jim, blah, 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 blah. Call all of his past clients, because he's not going to call them. And that's what they would teach. And I would laugh about it. And I knew it was true, because I was chasing all these different shiny objects and all these different things, thinking that was the right thing that's going to help propel us to the next thing, instead of saying, okay, we're going to focus on this. We're focused on loving on the people that already know who we are. We're going to be activities based with calling through our database and through working some new opportunities, and then just scale a little bit as that goes. But right now, I fear I've got just a little bit over 3,000 past clients. There's a couple $1 million in income there every single year. And that's one of the things that we don't necessarily focus on as an industry. So, but yeah, I mean, that's what I would do is I would start small and simple, and lead with profit and revenue, pay myself first, not last. I mean, I could write a book on all the things not to do, because I've done them, and I've done a lot of those things not to do really freaking well for a really long time. Yep. And not meaning that it was profitable, but that I was just stubborn and just said, screw it, let's just keep on going. And now looking back, I'm like, nope, we should have done that.
So, hey, Denise, I'm going to just answer this question for you. She's kind of talking about accountability. How do you guys know, what each person is doing? Well, Jim said it in there. He's tracking everything they do, right? If you're spending money, well, like Jim is doing, the Sean Hannity's and all the different people on TV and all that stuff, I promise you, folks, when you start spending your own money to do that, you're going to start to monitor the people to see what kind of return on investment are they getting for you. And so that comes down to your CRM. Are they there? Are you having a team meeting every morning? Like Jonathan said, hey, he doesn't have a physical office, but he does it all online. So they start, like Kurt Shewell, he starts at 8:30 in the morning, 8:30 to 9:30, they role play. 9:30, they start calling That's it. So there's accountability, and I any if Mike or Jonathan want to add, but I'm sure they all have accountability systems built in place, because if people aren't producing and you're spending, revenue to make phones ring, you're going to track that.
One last thing, I promise I'll shut up. But this is one thing that we had to go back and do is, I was reminded of a quote, and this is one that I suggest you write down and keep. But a standard without a consequence is merely a suggestion. And several months ago, we would say, this is what you have to do. We're going to track it. We're going to turn you off leads, blah, 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 blah. That's what's required. And there's no teeth to it because we all got busy. But when you set that standard, you have to have a consequence as well. And you have to be able to enforce that consequence. And when you have that, sometimes it is painful as the team leader, or if, even if it's a staff member. But if we don't enforce that consequence, all it is a suggestion, because there's no teeth to it. And then we'll complain about why it doesn't work. Because when you start enforcing those consequences and truly enforcing the standard and what's expected, you'll see the growth. And the people that want to grow will grow, and the people that don't want to grow or aren't willing to do the work, they'll phase themselves out. They'll self-deselect.
So one of the things that I do, folks, and I'm sure I may do things different, I actually have a job description. So when you're actually interviewing somebody, this is what's expected. So if I'm sitting down with Jim, hey, Jim, this is what it looks like. This is the schedule. This is what I require, etc. And then I have a line down on the bottom where Jim could sign and say, just understand when you're signing this, I want you to realize that you understand this and that this is what's going to be expected. Because I would rather just somebody like him and haw and not really do that. Then I know what I have up front and not waste a lot of time. Or they could never come back to me and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know what was entailed in all this. So I would rather do it up front. That's just how I do it. I don't know, Jonathan, Mike, if you agree with that or not, but that's how I do it. That's how I teach it, is have an actual job description that says, here's what's required. Because as Jim said, the way that I kind of a different saying, I manage to the rule, not the exception. Because what happens, oh, well, Bob, you don't understand. I couldn't do this day. Well, that's the exception. That's not how I manage. This is what I said was going to be. This is what it has to be. So I know I'm a hard enough, deep personality from the south side of Chicago, but too old to change now.
I agree with that. And then the other thing that we do is we also gamify our standards. So we have a top producer club that we have every single month. We do a lunch together, and you can qualify on our team. And we're talking about like accountability now. We're kind of like tangent from the actual question, but like the accountability portion, we'll celebrate our top producers based on production, but you can qualify as a top producer on our team based on activities, because we're an activities-based team also. So we know what the standards are. You talk about standards without consequences, merely a suggestion, but we celebrate the ones who hit the standards as well. So for you to hit the top producer status on our team, production or point-based, because we track everything that they do. It's point-based, where we celebrate if you hit a certain point, whatever that, I think our number is 75 points per month, which is a combination of showing houses, conversations, offers for and ratifying contracts and all that stuff, and testimonials and reviews and referrals. You get all those things. You can actually, become a top producer without closing a single deal. Now, has it happened? Yes, it's happened a couple of times where I've had agents actually hit activities. They don't have production to show for it, but what happens is when you start focusing on the right activities and the right standards every single month, we see like in the next 90 days, those agents, they'll come in and they feel like they're feeling like an imposter at our top producer lunch because they have no production, but I celebrate the activities. Within the next 60 to 90 days, every single time what happens is they start showing the activities turns into production. And now I have agents who are hitting production as a new agent, and they're hitting top producer status on our team over and over again because they focus on the right things. They have no bad, I don't want to say they have no bad habits, but like a lot of agents come in with habits of that really is not going to work. We come in like, hey, here's the standards.
You lost the volume of what you're saying, Jonathan. I don't know if that's just me or not.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I mean that's how we do it. So it's production or activities, and we have a specific standard on our activities. that we celebrate with our agents.
So one of the things that I think is critical that he just said, excuse me, said in there, folks, it's an activity-based business. Excuse me. What that means is if I tell somebody, hey, you have to talk to 10 people a day, and they never do it, how do I know what to help them with other than say, do it? But if they said, hey, I talked to 10 people a day for this entire week, and here were the results, and I didn't get any results, well, now we can go back and say, well, now what did you say and what should we say? And we can work on something to help you improve those skills. But without those activities, because it is, everything in real estate, in my opinion, is activity-based. If you have nothing else to do, go talk to anybody. There's one day across from my office, there was a Circle K, and this agent came and said, hey, I don't have anybody to talk to today. I said, cool, go grab 50 business cards, walk across the street to the Circle K, and just say, hey, do you know anybody thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate? That was it. It was just something. Was that the best use of his time? Probably not. Guess what? He got an investor from that. It was a better than lucky than good thing, but whatever. Activity will equal results at some point in your career. But if you sit at home watching, TV and eating bonbons, I promise nothing's going to happen. And we can't help you at that point. I don't know how to retrain you or to train you properly at that point if you won't do the activity. So that was like a really big one. Mike, how about you?
I think too many people get caught in the squat, right? They get ready, and they never go. So I like it. I like the KPI being activity based. I think that's like so important because it keeps the agent's attention and focus, and even the gamification and rewards are based on the activity, not necessarily the result, because we know activities lead to results. But if they're seeing the reward from the activity, then that's the behavior that can get repeated. So for me, the number one KPI out of all, the king KPI is valid conversations. Could be on the phone, could be face-to-face. Like, how many valid conversations did you have today about real estate? That's the KPI. So I don't care if it's calling FSBOs and expireds or if it's door knocking, it's the same KPI, right? How many valid conversations did you have about real estate today? Kind of going backwards for a second, you had were asking what would you do different today if you started a team in today's market, and I think, and this is something I did well, but I see a lot of people not doing well, and that is build a brand, like a personal brand that is your first and last name. Because if you don't have a brand that is your first and last name, I would make a logo about it. Like, put that on your open house signs, put that on your house for sale directional arrows, like. Act like you've got a business before you have a business, right? Put that on the side of your Suburban. Go get yourself a little trailer that you're going to loan out to clients to help them move or something. Put your signage all over it. Park it in a busy spot. You want that name everywhere. And if no one in my market is putting flyers in the flyer box on the sign, put flyers in the flyer box on the sign. Why? Because it's different. Number two, because out of everything they do that day, they're going to have a piece of paper in their hand with your name on it. And on the backside, it's going to have all kinds of information about you. Right? So show up, be differently, be activities based, but build a brand. And I like the idea of being a big fish in a small pond first before you're a big fish in a big pond. And your whole business can be circled around being a big fish in a bunch of small ponds. Once you've mastered one, you can create another little small pond to play in, and then another small pond to play in. And if you're always the expert to the group you're talking to, and you're speaking their language and solving their problem, then you're going to have a big business.
So I forget, let me see who asked this. Sue, contemplating joining a team from being solo for 7 years, going to 70 to 80. That's kind of why I asked those questions in advance, Sue, to give you an idea. This is what these three gentlemen have created, just rock star teams, look for. Well, you should be looking for the same thing. What level of support? What are they having you role play? Are they doing those things that you just heard these guys talk about running their team? Because they've run extremely successful teams. Mike actually sold his team. And so at the end of the day, that's what you should be looking for, is somebody who's going to do the same thing that all three of these guys told you that they do with their team. And that, in my opinion, is what you should be looking for, because they're all rock stars at doing this.
Can I chime in on this real
Sure.
quick?
No.
No? All right. Thanks, everybody. Anyways, so if you're joining a team, one thing that don't forget, you have to make sure your values align with that team, because every team leader is different. Everybody has different sets of values. So like as team leaders, we have our set of values that we look for, and we make sure that the agent aligns with our values. But at the same time, if you're joining a team, you want to make sure you know what your values are. What values are is like what's important to you. Like that's your decision maker. Like when you have different decisions to make, you decide based on what your values are. When you join a team, you want to make sure they have the same similar sets of values that resonates with you. Otherwise, you're gonna feel out of place. You're not gonna grow when you're in an environment where you have different sets of values. That's different than you. That's my 2 cents.
Yep.
And
One of the things that we
100%
always say is that your environment has to support your goals. And that's exactly what you're saying. So your environment has to support your goals. You have to be in alignment with where you're going just as much as they have to be in alignment with you. Because if not, it's not going to be a long-term, it's not going to work.
Yep.
Oh, cool. So folks, we're at the top of the hour. Jonathan, Mike, Jim, thanks so much for being here. You guys are amazing. Greg just said, I joined Griffin Home Group for 3 things: the system, process, and accountability. Those are 3 good questions you should be asking. So guys, thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it. I know you got a ton of things going on. I think this was helpful for everybody. Hopefully it was. And we'll see you guys next Monday for this. And then don't forget, Wednesday is commercial Top Agent Nation training. So thanks so much for being here, folks. Have an amazing day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.